Right, whenever you're ready.
Okay. Well, good evening, class. Today I'll be responding to a claim made by Allison that starting school at a later time will improve student performance in school and lower the risks associated with sleep deprivation. I will be refuting her claim that sleep deprivation impairs student learning. I will also be refuting the fact that students need an average of 9 hours and 9 hours and 1/4 hour of sleep a day. And I will be refuting the fact that the consequences of sleep deprivation in teens is particularly serious. Now, her secondary claim is that this point does not provide enough. The problem with her secondary claim is that she doesn't provide enough evidence to show that starting school later is associated with sleep deprivation. She makes the claim that the majority of schools start before 7 a.m. However, she does not tie in how this is responsible for sleep deprivation. In response to her second secondary claim, this point is true. However, the advocate fails to provide evidence to show a correlation between the number of hours each student gets and the time the school starts. The presumption in this point is that the lack of sleep, the presumption here is that the lack of sleep is due to the time the school starts and not the personal decisions that each student makes. This flaw in logic undermines her argument because it doesn't take into account the varying conditions that are associated with sleep deprivation, such as when the student decides to go to sleep. The problem with reasoning in this point is that the advocates again assumes that the students are not receiving enough sleep because of the time that schools start. While the evidence is accurate about the number of hours that students need, there is no direct correlation between when the school starts and the number of hours that they get each night of sleep. Now, in response to her third and final point, this point again fails to show correlation between the time the school starts and then the number of hours that each student receives. The point is made in this section that the number of hours, the school start time is responsible for drowsy driving as well as car accidents. However, the only piece of evidence that she uses in this section is a study done by a news agency in which people are asked to volunteer the information of the number of hours they sleep. And this information is compared to the number of accidents in the DMV records. The problem with this is that it conflates the cause of the accident with, it conflates the cause of accidents as being, The study compares the number of hours the participants say they sleep with the number of crashes, but it doesn't say the specific cause of the crashes. So the crashes could be for any number of reasons, and she simply just puts that in there with the rest of the evidence. This undermines the advocate's claim by not differentiating between crashes caused by drowsy driving and those caused by other factors. The main flaw in reasoning is the presumption that the solution to drowsy driving would be to start school at a later time. Again, the cause of sleep deprivation is assumed to be the time the school starts. Overall, school starting at the time that they do, the reason schools start at the time that they do is to prepare students for jobs in the real world. The majority of working people wake up before 6:30 a.m. according to a Pew research that found that of people that wake up between 5 a.m. and 10 a.m., more than half of them wake up before 6:30 a.m. And while it is true that students need as much sleep as they can to learn as much as they can, it's flawed reasoning to assume that the school start time is the reason that students are not receiving enough sleep. Thank you.
Oh, never mind.
It's still pretty
So-
big.
Wait, so it has like 3 books in it?
It's loosely based on my life.
Any chance one of them is Alice Wonderland?
It's loosely based on my life.
All right, the main propositions labeled pretty clearly, the secondary issues are spelled out a bit. You kind of make a general challenge that applies to all of the secondary claims, which is the causality argument that the start time of school is responsible for these kinds of issues. And you don't really start addressing that point until the very end of the presentation, when you discuss why it is that the start time is early, and you provide some information that shows that the vast majority of people in the workforce get up at a time that would be commensurate with the start time of school. I think that there's a good argument to be made here that suggests that the deprivation of sleep is a result of students failing to choose to go to bed early enough that they extend their time in the evening for a variety of reasons that are not necessarily school related, and that in the long run has a consequence to them in the morning, and that blaming it on the school is problematic as a result. I think that's probably the way you need to go, but you don't really have any information on that other than the one piece of information that talks about how, like I said at the end, working people generally get, more than half of them get up before 6:30 in the morning. So the notion that that's why schools operate that way, I'm not sure that that is a safe assumption, but it's a reasonable press to be making. Basically, it's the same argument each time on each of the points, and it comes up, and you explain it pretty clearly. It did feel a little bit like in that first section you were struggling to check off something. Well, here's an evidence response, and here's a reasoning response, and there wasn't really a counterclaim, but you tried to find something that sort of fit in that category. I think you're being too literal here. This would make a good paper, maybe, as opposed to a speech. There's an attempt to kind of analyze the way the other person has reasoned and criticize the presumptions and underlying assumptions that are being made. But let's get, cut to the chase for the presentation. You really have the one simple counterclaim. There are other reasons why they are sleep deprived. And then where's the evidence for that? That's what I think is missing from your argument. All right, thank you.